Hello, I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching Eagle News International.
And I'm CJ Hero. Welcome to the program. On tonight's headlines.
At least 20 people were killed and hundreds injured after 4 accidental explosions ripped through a military camp in Equatorial Guinea and obliterated neighboring residential areas.
2 anti-coup protesters were shot dead in Myanmar on Monday as demonstrators across the country sought to paralyze the economy with strike action following a weekend of night raids and arrests.
Prince Harry's wife, Meghan Markle, said she contemplated taking her own life after joining the royal family and raised allegations of racism in the monarchy during an explosive television interview.
And how to smile, where to place a hand, which direction to face. Young Vietnamese social media users are snapping up a popular influencer's course on posing for the perfect photo.
First, at least 20 people were killed and hundreds injured after 4 accidental explosions ripped through a military camp in Equatorial Guinea and obliterated neighboring residential areas. Footage broadcast by the TVGE channel showed buildings burned and flattened in a wide radius around the Nkoa Netoma camp in the economic capital Bata, with a thick plume of black smoke rising into the sky. Children and adults were seen being pulled from the rubble. There were also chaotic scenes at the hospital in Bata, with the wounded lying on the floor awaiting treatment. The health ministry warned in a tweet that many residents could still be buried under the wreckage. President Eudor Obiang Nguema said the accident had occurred after local farmers allowed a fire in the area to burn out of control, setting alight explosives that had been badly stored by soldiers at the military camp. The president issued a plea for international aid. The disaster comes at an already difficult time for Equatorial Guinea due to the economic crisis caused by falling petrol prices and the COVID-19 pandemic. Bata is the largest city in the oil and gas-rich Central African nation, with around 800,000 of the nation's 1.4 million population living there, most of them in poverty.
Real, concreta, con el delegado regional de sanidad de Bata para todas las necesidades reales que puedan surgir para la atención de los casos que tenemos. También se nos llega la información, claro, para trasladar los casos.
Anti-coup protesters gathered across Myanmar today, answering a trade union call for a general strike following a weekend of night raids and arrests. Monday's demonstrations followed an appeal by trade unions for mass walkouts to bring the economy to a standstill. To continue economic and business activities as usual will only benefit the military as they repress the energy of the Myanmar people, 18 unions said in a statement. Unions are seeking to extend the impact of an ongoing civil disobedience movement, a campaign urging civil servants to boycott working under military rule, which has already hit state machinery hard. The impact has been felt at every level of the national infrastructure, with shuttered hospitals, empty ministry offices, and banks unable to operate. The junta has warned that civil servants will be fired with immediate effect Monday if they continue to strike. Meanwhile, soldiers from the ethnic armed organization Karen National Union, or KNU, escort some 20,000 Karen teachers and students protesting protesting the coup near the southern city of Dawei. They offer protection against any potential clashes with Myanmar security forces. Myanmar's ethnic armed groups condemned the military last month for ousting Aung San Suu Kyi's government and signaled a halt to the country's long-running peace process, citing a lack of trust in the army.
Meanwhile, two anti-coup protesters were shot dead in Myanmar today as demonstrators across the country sought to paralyze the economy with strike action following a weekend of night raids and arrests. Take a look. In the northern city of Myitkyina, security forces used tear gas and opened fire during street clashes with stone-throwing protesters. A live Facebook stream of the incident showed protesters dragging multiple wounded comrades by the arms and legs, scrambling to get them to medical care. There was also grisly footage of bleeding bodies lying on beds as health workers frantically tried to resuscitate them. One man was seen in the footage lying face down with part of his skull blown out. Security forces patrolled Yangon streets, inspecting the inside of motorist cars and demanding to see the phones of passers-by, according to an AFP reporter. Reports emerged overnight that security forces had taken over several public hospitals in Yangon. Physicians for Human Rights said it was appalled by these moves, calling them a violation of international law. The military, which denies responsibility for loss of life in the protests, has defended seizing power by alleging widespread electoral fraud in November's elections, which Aung San Suu Kyi's party had won in a landslide.
Meanwhile, Australia's Foreign Minister Marise Payne announced late on Sunday the country was suspending its defense cooperation program with Myanmar, which included English language training. Canberra is reviewing its aid program, so money is channeled away from government agencies towards not-for-profit organizations. According to Al Jazeera, Australia's bilateral defense ties with Myanmar's military are restricted to non-combat areas such as English language training, which have continued even after the brutal crackdown in Rakhine State in 2017 that led to hundreds of thousands of mostly Muslim Rohingya to flee across the border to Bangladesh. Australia said it would continue to demand the immediate release of Sean Turnell, an economist and advisor to Aung San Suu Kyi. Turnell has been detained with limited consular access since the coup.
In other news, Vietnamese health workers received their first doses of AstraZeneca vaccine as the Southeast Asian country begins its COVID-19 vaccination today. Health workers in Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh City, and northern Hai Duong province, the COVID-19 hotspot in Vietnam at the moment, are first to receive the vaccine. Take a look.
Mình với cả anh em ở bệnh viện thì gần như là không ai có lo lắng gì hết cả. Mọi người cũng rất là vui khi đã được nhận tiêm vaccine vì cái này nó cũng sẽ giúp mình được phòng chống cái bệnh về Covid. Thì nó cũng là tăng cường cái sức đề kháng thôi.
Vietnam received its first batch of 117,000 doses of AstraZeneca vaccine last month, with around 50,000 people in the high-risk group will be prioritized to get the first doses. The Southeast Asian nation has ordered 30 million vaccine doses of AstraZeneca vaccine in 2021, and it will also receive another 4.9 million doses aided by COVAX Vaccine Alliance. Vietnam has been lauded globally for its success in fighting the coronavirus, with only 35 deaths have been recorded so far.
At least 5,293 medical frontliners of the armed forces of the Philippines have been inoculated so far with the Sinovac BioNTech's CoronaVac vaccines, as many have responded to the call, according to AFP Public Affairs Office Chief Navy Captain Jonathan Zata. Zata said the vaccines came mostly from military treatment facilities, or MTFs, in the National Capital Region and the 4th Infantry Division in Cagayan de Oro. Vaccination of military health frontliners started on the first day of March, a day after the 600,000 doses of Sinovac vaccine donated by China arrived in the country. The exact number of vaccines per MTF is still being collated as of this time, according to ZATA. MTFs located in Metro Manila include the Victoriano Luna Medical Center and the Camp General Emilio Aguinaldo Station Hospital, both in Quezon City, Manila Naval Hospital, and the Philippine Army General Hospital, both in Taguig, and the Philippine Air Force General Hospital in Pasay City.
In other news, senior members of Britain's royal family are to show a united front, praising the efforts of global health workers before they aired the tell-all interview of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Here's Kathleen Eusebio for the report.
Here is an update in the United Kingdom. Senior members of Britain's royal family are to show a united front on Sunday, praising the efforts of global health workers before the airing of a tell-all interview with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Just hours ahead of the screening of the interview, which has strained relations between the royals and sparked a transatlantic public relations war, Queen Elizabeth and other senior family members will appear in a program celebrating the Commonwealth. Prince Charles, the heir to the throne, his eldest son William, and their wives Camilla and Kate will pay tribute to the world's frontline workers in the COVID outbreak. Charles will commend the extraordinary determination, courage, and creativity shown by the people of the Commonwealth, an association of nations from the former British Empire while fighting the disease. He will also say the outbreak has shown how human health, economic health, and planetary health are fundamentally interconnected, emphasizing that climate change is another existential threat, which knows no borders. William and Kate, formerly known as the Duke and the Duchess of Cambridge, will speak with South African doctor and health activist Zulelo Sifomba about the rights of healthcare workers. It's sad almost that it's taken the pandemic for the public to really back and support all those working on the front line, Kate will say. Messages will be broadcast from London's Westminster Abbey, where last year at the Commonwealth Day service, Meghan and Harry made their last appearance, before giving up royal duties during an acrimonious split from the family. The couple, who have relocated to the United States, agreed last month they would not return to their roles as senior royals, and said at the time service was universal. Since their departure and in the run-up to Sunday's interview, counter-briefings in the press between the couple and the Buckingham Palace have escalated. The interview with U.S. chat show host Oprah Winfrey is expected to deal with media intrusion into their lives and the decision to quit royal duties in the UK and move to North America.
Who is having that conversation with you?
Reporting from London, United Kingdom, I'm Kathleen Eusebio. We live in interesting times.
Prince Harry's wife, Meghan Markle, on Sunday said she contemplated taking her own life after joining the royal family and raised allegations of racism in the monarchy during an explosive television interview. Explaining the couple's dramatic exit from royal life, Meghan said she was denied help during her mental health crisis, was targeted by lies, and that there was official concern about the skin color of her unborn son. Watch this.
It was all happening just because I was breathing. And look, I was really ashamed to say it at the time, and ashamed to have to admit it to Harry especially, because I know how much loss he suffered. But I knew that if I didn't say it, that I would do it. And I just didn't want to be alive anymore. And that was a very clear and real and frightening, constant thought. And I remember how he just cradled me, and I went to the institution. And I said that I needed to go somewhere to get help. I said that I've never felt this way before, and I need to go somewhere. And I was told that I couldn't, that it wouldn't be good for the institution.
Now, Meghan Markle accused the British royal family in a sensational interview broadcast Sunday of fretting over how dark her son's skin would be. Markle, who is African-American, said her husband, Prince Harry, revealed his family's concerns over Archie's skin tone as well as the security he would be entitled to ahead of his birth on May 6th of 2019. Take a look.
You think it's because of his race? And I know that's a loaded question, but
I can give you an honest answer. In those months when I was pregnant, all around this same time, so we have in tandem the conversation of he won't be given security, he's not going to be given a title, and also concerns and conversations about how dark his skin might be when he's born.
what? There is a conversation. Hold up.
There's
Stop
several
right now.
There's several conversations.
There's a conversation with you,
with Harry,
about how dark your baby is going to be?
Potentially, and what that would mean or look like.
Ooh.
And that was when they were saying they didn't want him to be a prince or a princess, not knowing what the gender would be, which would be different from protocol, and that he wasn't going to receive security.
What?
It was really hard.
That your son and Harry, Prince Harry's son, was not going to receive security?
That's right.
Daily Mail royal reporter and author Robert Hardman says he believes Harry and Meghan's interview with Oprah Winfrey raises a whole new set of questions rather than setting the record straight, but that the royal family are likely to just get on with it and continue their schedule of events rather than responding to the allegations made against them. Watch this.
We were clearly expecting something pretty dramatic. I think it exceeded those expectations. I do think it raises a lot of questions. I mean, clearly the couple possibly were hoping to clear the air and to set the record straight. But in doing so, they've obviously invited a whole new set of questions. They've raised the issue of race. That's probably the most damning charge in the interview. But you've got Meghan saying this sort of happened while she was pregnant. You've got Harry saying that that was before they were even married. And they've conflated that issue with the whole subject of security, which isn't really a matter for the royal family anyway. It's one for the police. And then they've said that, you know, Archie, there was a decision not to give him a title, but he was never going to get a title. They didn't want one. He does have one, actually. He's the Earl of Dumbarton. So, you know, just on that one point alone, there are more questions on this. But I sense that on high, the view will be, you know, we've got work to do. This is what we do. It's Commonwealth Day. It's International Women's Day. There's a whole load of royal engagements planned around the vaccine programme. I think they'll just get on with it. Yeah, clearly there will be a lot of sympathy for them, and at the same time there'll be a lot of sympathy for the Queen and for the royal family. I mean, I think that this subject has really sort of stepped into a kind of post-Brexit void. It's become a proxy issue for a number of people. There are people who feel very, very strongly at both ends of the spectrum, and the majority of people, I suspect, sort of caught in the middle, following it a bit, thinking, well, that's all a bit of a mess, but, you know, life goes on.
Queen Elizabeth II was the only member of the royal family to emerge unscathed, wrote the Daily Telegraph. Yet, Shipp said since the couple voice such grave concerns about the family, surely their severe criticisms of it extend to the Queen herself. The couple have set a new narrative, the Times reported, yet there was also criticism of the couple for giving the interview. The Daily Mail tabloid, which has been highly critical of Meghan, quoted royal expert Robert Jobson as saying that the couple were self-obsessed, and he called their interview at times terribly self-indulgent. Several media outlets questioned the specifics, including Meghan's suggestion that the royal family changed their rules to refuse their son Archie the title of prince because of his skin color. The Telegraph, meanwhile, accused U.S. chat show Queen Winfrey of taking the couple's answers as gospel despite obvious contradictions. The palace has not commented, and it is not immediately clear whether they will.
To other news now, South Korea and the United States have reached agreement on Seoul's contribution to the costs of the U.S. troop presence on the peninsula, according to Seoul on Monday, as the two allies kicked off annual joint military exercises. Washington stations 20,500 troops in the country to defend it from the nuclear-armed North, which invaded in 1950. They are a key part of U.S. forces deployment in Asia, but negotiations over funding had been gridlocked by the former U.S. administration's demands that the South pay billions of dollars more towards their costs. The Trump administration initially insisted on $5 billion a year, a more than five-fold increase. Under the previous deal, which expired at the end of 2019, Seoul paid Washington about $920 million yearly. Seoul's foreign ministry said the two sides had reached an agreement in principle without specifying the agreed amount. U.S. President Joe Biden has vowed to revive frayed U.S. alliances under his predecessor to counter the challenges posed by Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea. The agreement came as Seoul and Washington kicked off their annual military training today, which has been scaled down from the usual level over COVID-19, with no large-scale physical troop involvement. The 9-day exercise is still likely to infuriate the North, which has long considered such drills rehearsals for invasion.
Meanwhile, Hong Kong's leader praises China's plan to ensure only patriots remain in politics, denying the move was a purge of the opposition. She also rules out any need to consult the public on the changes as they were decreed by Beijing. Legislation to vet all election candidates in Hong Kong is currently being discussed by China's rubber stamp parliament and is expected to be adopted on Thursday. China has said only those deemed patriotic will be allowed to stand. Watch this.
呢一個嘅決定加修法嘅方式係及時、係必要，而且係合法、合憲。佢嘅主導權同埋決定權呢係不容置疑嘅，所以我同埋特區政府係非常之歡迎同埋支持呢一次完善香港選舉制度嘅工作。The improvements to the electoral system in the Hong Kong SAR are not designed to favor someone. It is designed to ensure that whoever is administering Hong Kong is patriotic.
Critics say the radical overhaul of the city's already limited democratic system will demolish what remains of the pro-democracy opposition and ensure only loyalists remain, an argument that Lam rejected today. China promised Hong Kong would keep a degree of autonomy and certain freedoms when it reverted from British colonial rule in 1997. The city has a partially elected legislature, and China also promised to one day grant residents universal suffrage. Critics had for years complained freedoms were being steadily eroded. Beijing then ramped up the dismantling of the financial hub's democratic pillars in response to huge and sometimes violent democracy rallies that paralyzed the city throughout 2019. Hong Kong was poised to hold direct elections for half the city legislators' seats last summer, but delayed the polls for a year, citing the coronavirus. On Monday, Lam hinted a further delay was likely given the sweeping changes Beijing is planning.
In other news, a missile and drone attack targeted the heart of Saudi Arabia's oil industry on Sunday in an assault claimed by Yemen's Houthi rebels, a new escalation in the 6-year conflict. The attack on energy giant Aramco's facilities came as the Saudi-led military coalition bombed Yemen's Houthi-controlled capital Sana'a after intercepting a separate flurry of cross-border Houthi drones and missiles. The rising hostilities underscore a dangerous intensification of Yemen's conflict between the coalition-backed Yemeni government and the Iran-backed Houthis, despite a renewed U.S. push to end the war. The Saudi Defense Ministry said it had intercepted a drone targeting a petroleum storage yard at the Ras Tanura, one of the world's biggest oil ports, and a ballistic missile aimed at Aramco facilities in Dhahran City in eastern Saudi Arabia. The kingdom's oil-rich eastern region is home to most of Aramco's production and export facilities. In 2019, aerial assaults on 2 Aramco facilities in the eastern region temporarily knocked out half of the kingdom's crude production, underscoring the vulnerability of Saudi Arabia's oil infrastructure. The Defense Ministry said Sunday's attacks targeted the backbone of the world economy, oil supplies, and global energy security.
Here in the Philippines now, the national government is investigating the death of at least 9 activists in a series of raids conducted by the police in Laguna, Rizal, Batangas, and Cavite provinces, according to Malacanang. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque made this remark after human rights groups denounced the killing of activists, which took place 2 days after President Rodrigo Duterte told state forces to kill communist rebels in an encounter. Watch this.
In question, no? Unang-una po lilinawin ko. Meron pong batas na umiiral pag merong labanan. At ito po ang batas na umiiral sa labanan sa panig ng gobyerno at ng NPA, CPP, NPA. Dahil meron pong digmaang nangyayari, hindi po talaga bawal pumatay. Ang ating batayan ay kung meron talagang military necessity sa pagpatay. Ibig sabihin, number 1, kung necessary, number 2, kung proportionate, at number 3, if it will achieve yung objective po, no? Which is the complete subjugation of the enemy, yung pagkatalo ng kalaban. So sa batas na umiiral under international humanitarian law, kapag meron kang sandata at ikaw ay kabahagi sa labanan, pwede kang pumatay at pwede ka ring mapatay. Kaya nga po ginagawa ng lahat ng gobyerno para matigil itong labanan. Nang sa ganon, wala ng Pilipino na napapatay ng kapwa Pilipino. Ano ba ho ang mga datos ngayon? Ha? Naku, nakakalungkot po. Itong mga datos na ito January 2018 to January 2021 lamang. Ang mga napatay po, dapat ang mga sibilyan binibigyan ng proteksyon. Ang mga napatay, 50. Sa panig ng gobyerno, ang mga napatay, 143. At sa panig po ng mga terorista, 343. Nakakalungkot po yan dahil Pilipino pumamatay ng kapwa Pilipino. Pero kapag meron po talagang digmaan, sang-ayon sa international humanitarian law, pwede talagang magkaroon ng labanan at meron talagang mamamatay, lalong-lalo na doon sa mga kasapi po sa labanan. So under IHL po, tama yung order ng presidente. Kill, kill, kill. Kasi nga po, kapag merong labanan, kapag ang kalaban mo may baril na pwede kang patayin, alangan namang ikaw ang mag-antay na ikaw ang mabaril at mapatay. Hindi po paglabag ng batas, international humanitarian law, kapag nagpaputok ang sundalo sa isang armadong NPA fighter at mapatay ang NPA fighter. Pero ang tanong mo, meron bang distinction between dun sa mga aktivista at mga rebelde? Siyempre po meron. Isa po yan sa cardinal principle ng IHL. One of the basic limitations po ng means and method is always distinguish. Kailangan tatargetin mo lang yung mga kabahagi sa labanan at huwag mong tatargetin yung mga hindi kabahagi gaya ng sibilyan. Kaya ang sagot ko po, dun sa mga napatay na mga aktivista, ang obligasyon ng Estado po, iimbestigahan at kung makita nila na meron talagang dapat parusahan, ang obligasyon ay lilitisin at paparusahan ang mga pumatay. So yung mga 10 na napatay, iimbestigahan po natin yan kasi hindi po sila sakop ng international humanitarian law dahil nung sila ay napatay, wala naman silang hawak na barel. Pero yung order na presidente na kill, 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 legal po yan dahil ang kanyang sinabing kill, kill, kill ay yung mga rebelde na meron pong hawak na armas.
Mr. Roque also assured that the government continues to take steps to address the threat of terrorism and violent extremism in the country. He assured the killing of 9 activists will be included in investigations being conducted by the Department of Justice-led Drug War Review Panel created to reinvestigate the 5,655 deaths in police drug war operations. He said killing of members of the New People's Army Communist Party of the Philippines, or the NPA-CPPA, is justifiable if it is necessary, proportionate, and if it will achieve complete subjugation of the enemy.
And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
This portion is brought to you by Canriv Corporation, your ventilation and air conditioning specialist. Services offered: supply and installation of elevators, escalators, air conditioners, ventilators, jet towel, hand dryers, generators, access control system, factory automation, and modernization. For more info, please contact Ami Kanke at 0915-263-7198 or 0998-900-3224.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon, hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
Welcome back. The U.S. Senate on Saturday voted to approve a $1.9 trillion relief package in what President Joe Biden called a giant step towards reviving the pandemic-stricken American economy, capping frenzied negotiations and a marathon overnight voting session. Passed by 50 votes to 49 in a strict party line vote, the sweeping legislation now heads back to the Democratic Majority House of Representatives, where it's expected to be adopted, barring a last-minute setback. Take a look.
This plan puts us on a path to beating the virus. This plan gives those families who are struggling the most the help and the breathing room they need to get through this moment. This plan gives small businesses in this country a fighting chance to survive. And one more thing, this plan is historic. Taken all together, this plan is going to make it possible to cut child poverty in half.
The legislation would send out $1,400 in stimulus checks to most Americans and allocates $350 billion to state and local governments and $130 billion to schools. It would also provide $49 billion for expanded COVID testing, tracing, and research, and $14 billion for vaccine distribution.
Swiss bank UBS is back on trial in Paris, appealing a 2019 verdict that saw the bank fined a record 3.7 billion euros on charges of illegally soliciting clients and concealing billions of euros in undeclared assets. According to Reuters, the bank has denied any wrongdoing. It has so far set aside a tenth of that amount, or 450 million euros, to cover the penalties. It says any fine should be based on the amount of unpaid taxes and not the total funds parked by clients in Switzerland. French prosecutors said at the time that UBS sent Swiss bankers to golf tournaments, classical music concerts, and hunting parties to solicit clients illegally, advising them to put their money in Switzerland and offering them methods to shield activities from the French taxmen. The bank, the world's largest in wealth management, said it regularly organized social events for clients and they did not constitute unlawful solicitation.
Back here in the country, the Department of Labor and Employment Secretary Silvestre Bello III announced that they will issue an advisory on the issue of vaccination in workplaces early this week. Let's listen in.
John, fake news yan, fake news yan. Walang legal basis yan, and I don't think any employer or management group will ever practice this. Alam naman nila na walang legal basis yan. Illegal yan. Hindi pwede na pilitin mo ang isang tao na magpabakuna kung ayaw niya. And lalong hindi pwede na gawin mong kondisyon para makapasok siya na kailangan mabakunahan mo na siya. No, that is a very illegal policy, John. Hindi pwede yan. Kung ayaw ng tao magpabakuna, hindi mo siya mapilit. Pero having said that, Aldo, ako'y nakikiusap sa ating mga kababayan, kapag nandyan na ang bakuna, magpapakuna na tayo. Yan ang the best way for us to ensure our return to normalcy. Yan po. Maliwanag, Aldo, yung no vaccine, no work is an illegal policy, and I am assuring everybody that so far our office has not received any formal complaint from any labor group, from any employees group na hindi sila pinapayagang pumasok dahil hindi sila nabakunahan. Pwede silang dumiretso sa mga DOLE offices namin. Meron kaming city, municipal, provincial, and regional offices. At pwede rin sila magreklamo through our hotline 1439 and 1438. Hindi pwede, walang legal basis yun. At saka, paano mo pilitin yung ating mga kababayan ngayon na wala pa naman vaccine? O konti pa lang?
Secretary Bello said they have yet to receive any complaints from employees regarding the issue. He, however, urged Filipinos to get vaccinated.
Oil prices surged Monday and stock markets traded mixed as investors weighed worries over high inflation against the reopening of virus-hit economies. After Asian indices closed mostly lower with sharp losses in Hong Kong and Shanghai, Europe pushed higher, approaching the midway point. Brent crude oil surged more than 2% Monday following a missile attack on facilities owned by energy giant Aramco in Saudi Arabia and an optimism about the demand outlook as the global economy recovers. A barrel of the black gold jumped 2.11% to $70.82 a barrel, the highest since January 2020. The news continues on Eagle News. Please don't go away.
15 towns and cities in the Visayas and Mindanao will be the first to experience the telecommunication services of Dito Telecommunity during its commercial rollout today. In a Laging Handa briefing on Tuesday, Dito Chief Administrative Officer Adel Tamano said earlier, these areas include Panabo City, Tagum City, Carmen, Davao, and Digo City in Metro Davao and Carcar City, Cebu City, Consolacion, Danao, Liloan, Mandaue City, Minglanilla, Naga City, San Fernando, and Talisay City in Metro Cebu. Initially, he said Dito will offer 4G mobile services to 37% of the country's population with an average speed of 27 megabits per second, with broadband services planned for rollout next year. He also said Dito services is limited to 4G with plans for a 5G rollout at a later date, with no planned support for legacy technology such as 2G and 3G. Dito aims to bring pure 5G technology in the country through its partner China Telecom by next year, made possible through its planned 257 billion peso investment in 5 years. Singapore Airlines will begin trialing a coronavirus digital travel pass developed by aviation's industry body next week, according to the carrier on Monday, the first airline to pilot the scheme as the pandemic sector seeks to recover. The app, developed by the International Air Transport Association, or IATA, will store information on passengers' health, including whether they have had virus tests or vaccines, to streamline travel as borders reopen. Singapore's flag carrier said it would offer travelers heading from the city-state to London between March 15 and 28 the chance to participate in the pilot if they have a phone operating on the iOS system. Takeaway meals app Deliveroo said Monday it slashed its losses last year on booming demand from lockdown customers during the pandemic and confirmed plans for its London stock market listing. The company made an underlying loss of £223.7 million in 2020, it said in a statement. However, that marked an improvement from the loss of £317 million the prior year. The total value of transactions rocketed 64% to £4.1 billion. Deliveroo last week picked London for its stock market listing, handing a major boost to the capital's financial sector, which has been roiled by Brexit. The company on Monday officially announced its expected intention to list in an initial public offering, or IPO, that will target institutional investors outside the U.S. The IPO will include a community offer in which the company will enable UK-based consumers with a Deliveroo account to apply for shares in the company, it said. Deliveroo confirmed in January that it would target a London IPO after a fundraising bound valued the firm at more than $7 billion. Since its London launch in 2013, Deliveroo has expanded across Europe, Asia, Australia, and the Middle East. More than 6 million people ordered food and drink every month last year via the 115,000 cafes, restaurants, and stores that are listed on its platform.
The European Banking Authority, a key EU financial regulator, says it has fallen victim to a hack of its Microsoft email system, which the U.S. company blames on a Chinese group. Microsoft said last week that a state-sponsored group operating out of China was exploiting previously unknown security flaws in its Exchange email services to steal data from business and government users, believed to number in the tens of thousands so far. The Hafnium Group was a highly skilled and sophisticated actor, it said. Hafnium has previously targeted U.S.-based companies including infectious disease researchers, law firms, universities, defense contractors, think tanks, and NGOs, it added. In a statement issued late Sunday, the EBA confirmed the attack on its email systems, which it had decided to take offline as a precautionary measure. The EBA warned that as a result of the attack, personal data could have been accessed and it would provide advice on possible mitigation measures if necessary. Microsoft executive Tom Burt said last Tuesday that the company provided updates to fix the security flaws and urged customers to apply them. Meanwhile, climate change may have played a key role in the transmission of the novel coronavirus to humans by driving several species of pathogen-carrying bats into closer contact, research showed on Friday. The virus, which has killed more than 2 million people and caused unprecedented global disruption, is thought to have originated in bats in Southeast Asia. Researchers from the University of Cambridge used temperature and rainfall data over the last 100 years to model populations of dozens of bat species based on their habitat requirements. They found that over the last century, 40 species had relocated to southern China, Laos, and Myanmar, the area where genetic analysis suggests the virus known as SARS-CoV-2 first appeared. Since each bat species carries an average of 2.7 coronaviruses, the researchers said 100 strains of coronavirus were now concentrated in this hotspot area. While the precise chain of SARS-CoV-2 transmission from animals to humans is yet to be determined, Bayer said the changing climate and habitat destruction in Asia had driven virus-carrying species into ever closer contact with human populations.
Thousands of panels glinting in the sun stretch into the Sea of Singapore, part of the land-scarce city-state's push to build floating solar farms to cut greenhouse gas emissions. It may be one of the world's smallest countries, but the prosperous financial hub is among the biggest per capita carbon dioxide emitters in Asia. Take a look.
After exhausting the rooftops, the available land, which is very scarce, the next big potential is actually our water area. And we have got many reservoirs in Singapore that we can do floating, dual use, floating and reservoir at the same time.
They have been living under strict confinement measures for months, but soon the second shot of a life-saving vaccine will let them go outside and get back to their normal lives. 29 Gentoo penguins at Norway's Bergen Aquarium have had a tarp stretched over their pen since early December after cases of a highly infectious bird flu strain H5N8 were detected in the country. Because of this, the Food Health Authority introduced a curfew. All birds in captivity must be kept under a roof. Aquarium Director Aslak Sverdrup told AFP on Thursday. But the end is in sight with the arrival of bird flu vaccine doses. The oldest and most fragile had their first shot on Wednesday, followed by the younger penguins. Among the freshly immunized is Erna, named for Prime Minister Erna Solberg, who once had a summer job at the aquarium, a tourist attraction in the western city where she was born. Once the second vaccine dose has been administered in a month's time, the birds will be able to see the sky again. In the wild, Gentoo penguins live on the other side of the Earth in Antarctica. None of the Bergen aquarium caught the flu, and while the disease can be devastating for birds, transmission to humans is rare.
Cute. How to smile, where to place a hand, which direction to face. Young Vietnamese social media users are snapping up a popular influencer's course on posing for the perfect photo. In communist Vietnam, where 70% of the population is under 35, the classes are particularly popular with young women. Take a look.
Là lớp mình cũng sẽ có những học viên đến để có thể là học cách làm sao mà để có thể là phục vụ cho công việc của mình, và có những học viên đến để tìm đến sự tự tin cũng như là cải thiện các kỹ năng về cuộc sống, ví dụ như là đi đứng rồi ăn nói làm sao để được tự tin cũng như là giao tiếp tốt hơn.
Em muốn làm hình tượng mẫu để cho các bạn hướng tới những các bạn trẻ, những bạn sinh viên sắp ra trường thì mỗi giai đoạn thì nó sẽ có một cái hình ảnh khác nhau. Thì giai đoạn này thì em đang hướng tới là một người doanh nhân, business, làm kinh doanh.
There you go.
We have a lot to learn. I want to subscribe. That's it for tonight's broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I am CJ Hero. See you again tomorrow.
And at the end of the day, there remains so much more to be grateful for. I'm Alma Angeles, and we live in interesting times.
Dito sa ULAD, di kami mauubusan ng paraan sa pagbibigay ng hanap buhay.
Malaking tulong sa akin.
Dahil po dito makapagtatapos po ako ng aking pag-aaral.